Good evening, everyone. Welcome to closing comments here for March 4th. Let's jump right into our charts and see what happened in these markets today. First up, we got our April live cattle on the board. Did see nice gains here in this cattle market today. Both feeders and fats seeing some nice upside here as they both recovered their major averages and our bull pivots this week. This April live cattle contract seeing a nice gap and go off that open, rallying right up there towards 239 at the high of the day. Testing this prior week's point of control. We did see some leftover sellers from last week stepping in here once price tested that 239 area. We did see a nice sharp break off of 239 back to 237. However, those bulls did a good job of defending that bull pivot here today and seeing this market rally back up here to 238.5 into the close. Nice strong day here for this cattle market. At the moment, we are coming off some oversold levels here, so this still could be just a bit of a dead cat bounce. We have some leftover supply up here at last week's point of control like we saw here on these intraday charts, as well as just this prior day's range before this breakdown we saw on the 26th of the month. Look for sellers to step back in and be active up here between 239 and 240. If we see this market kind of balance out here and run into some resistance, could spell trouble for this cattle market, and we could get another leg lower. However, if those bulls continue to see good support here of 237 and continued momentum into tomorrow's session, and chew up here through the supply zone, a close back up here towards the top end of this zone should signal a good setup for recovery here for those bulls and set us up for a nice recovery into next week and see those bulls try and push this thing back up into these highs. At the moment, we just have some supply overhead that we want to keep a watch on. I encourage everyone to be patient here while this market continues to digest this recent volatility. If we are going to be set up for a recovery and see higher prices here, we'll have a better chance to take advantage of that as we move into next week. In the meantime, let's be patient, see how this week settles up throughout Thursday and Friday's action. Should give us a little bit better picture of how we're going to trade this thing going into next week. So in the meantime, sit back, be patient, let this market digest this recent move, see how these sellers react once we get up into this area, and we'll have better information as we go into the end of the week. April feeders on the board, same story here, picking up some nice ground today, getting back above our major averages and those bull pivots. However, this market did test that prior week's point of control here, as well as that similar to that April live contract. Nice sharp rejection off of 361 today, giving back about $3 in a hurry. But those bulls managed to stage a nice recovery here, pushing back up here just shy of 361 into the close today. Nice strong gains here today and over the last couple days coming off some oversold levels. We still expect to see some selling pressure here in this prior week's point of control and off this breakdown here from the 26th of last month. Look for the sellers to wake back up and try and hold this market in this area and maybe even try and get a rejection back down here below our bull pivot tomorrow. If those bulls are able to defend these major averages and 356, or even see some continued momentum through this zone, that should set them up for a nice recovery and more upside into next week. But like that live cattle market, we should just be seeing this market digest some of this volatility a little bit more. We have a battle on our hands over the next couple of days as we test this overhead supply zone. Just be patient, slow play this thing. We'll see how this market finishes up for the week, both live and feeder markets, and should give us a little bit better picture as we go into next. We'll be patient. We'll continue to monitor this situation over the next couple of days, but should be a little bit clearer picture for us after this week is up and we move into next week. So in the meantime, we'll continue to watch this thing, and we'll check back in tomorrow night for closing comments. May corn futures on the board. We did see this thing slip back down below these prior day lows and that 444 line. Did see some support down there right around those major moving averages though, and finishing the day just shy of 440 here. Lots of indecision here in this corn market, just continuing to see some sloppy, choppy action here. A little bit of rejection this current week up here near these highs towards the top end of this January 12th breakdown range. Just going to continue to see some choppy action here. No real directional moves expected. This thing is just kind of digesting some of this recent breakdown, trying to clean up some of this leftover inventory here. And this corn market just doesn't have a whole lot of structure to it at the moment. Look for more choppy action here. Not a market that we want to be super directional with here at the moment. If these bulls are able to rally this thing back above 444 tomorrow and see some sustained momentum here after finding support at those averages today, we could see a nice push back up here through the top end of this range. But at the moment, neither side is really looking favorable here in this corn market. We should just continue to see some sloppy, choppy action here in these corn markets. Next up, crude oil prices continuing to see some volatility and more upside here. Today we saw a nice push back up towards those prior day highs And so far here in this evening session, we are getting back above 77. This market is just going to be at the mercy of the news here at the moment, and see if there's any more escalation over there in Iran. In the meantime, the bulls are seeing some nice upside here, continuing to flow with this big gap we saw here to start off this week. Uh, in this last year and any prior dust ups here with problems going on over in the Middle East or short covering rallies, we continue to see good resistance up here in the high 70s, and it's right up there below $80. As you can see over the last about year or so, we have ran real hard up into this $78 to $80 area, and it was quickly rejected. So if this situation over in Iran settles down and we see the end of it here sooner than later, we should see this thing start to melt back down and come back to earth a little bit, back into the 60s. Not really expecting sustained upside here. Just going to see continued volatility while everything is going on in the news. But in the meantime, just look for more volatility here. Not really a time, if you weren't in this thing early, there really isn't much to do for this crude oil market. So sit back and enjoy the show, and wait for this thing to come back to earth when this thing inevitably dies down. Next up, equity markets, continuing with some more upside here today. Each of our indexes gaining a little bit of ground, however, still just trading down here near these range lows. And as far as the Dow goes, just holding on to this yearly opening range. Not as much upside here in this Dow index today. We did see the S&P and the NASDAQ be a little bit stronger here, finishing with the NASDAQ above those prior day highs. However, we are still trading below our major moving averages, still seeing some resistance and some choppy action here. Still not a super favorable environment for stocks at the moment. We continue to see this thing range bound. Bulls are still stepping in to defend these range lows here in the S&P and the NASDAQ. Things look like they're getting a little bit more slippery here on the Dow as we are starting to lose some of this ground, and with the couple of gap downs we saw early this week. If we do see sustained downside below these range lows and this yearly opening range in the Dow, look for this thing start to get slippery and to get moved into more of a corrective environment. But until we can do that, we just expect to see more choppy action here. Not much directional movement for these indexes. We are still seeing strength in certain sectors, but as far as these indexes and mega caps go, it's a pretty mixed bag, and we expect to see more choppy action here in the near term. That's all we got for tonight. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Catch you guys tomorrow.